I'm going to speak about how psychedelics, if you want to do a master course, can you hear me or there's an echo? Is there echo? No, it's good. If you want to do a master course in Exeter, there's a QR code over here. And I'm teaching there with Peter and Andy Letcher and Celia Morgan and more people, and it's a great course. Some students are here as well, and it's very fun. Highly recommended. So I'm going to speak about how psychedelics spread. Diffusion is how substances spread in space. And I'm going to map it. We're going to take it like an overview, like also almost from above, and look at psychedelic movements and fields and moving between situations, and looking how revelatory events are revolutionary in potential. And hope that you're going to be entertained as well from this talk in some ways. So we can think about materials and substances in nature as something that we enter relations with. There's a network actors in these relationships that we enter relationship with. Yeah. So Yuval Noah Harari said, "We did not domesticate wheat; it is wheat that domesticated us." So we can imagine that we enter a relationship with that substance. It can also change our way of being, our society. And in a way, the claim is that for wheat, potatoes, rice, we have domesticated ourselves and moved into villages in service of those genes. So those genes proliferate through entering relationship with us. And we can think about the same thing with psychedelics, what psychedelics do to us to spread, yeah, when we enter the relationship with them. I would like to say that I'm very much influenced from my peace work with Israelis and Palestinians and encountering those prophetic, revelatory moments that are also political, that are also painful and relates to collective traumas, that from stories that I heard and experiences that I witnesses. This is of Ruqayya, a Palestinian woman who in 2018 drank ayahuasca in a group with Jewish participants, and mostly Jewish participants. And she had strong visions of the pain in the land, cycles of trauma and war in the land, bloodshed that goes into the land, women, mothers who sacrifice their children. And there's a lot of history in her revelation. There's a history that goes of cycles of war, cycles of bloodshed, goes to the Holocaust, continues to the land, continues to the war in the land, and continues to the future, to the apocalyptic future that didn't come yet. And she's very painful in her revelatory moment, and she has to transmit this frequency of message, of anger, of change in that ceremony. And she transmits that message to the song that comes from her center in anger with a wish to change reality. So I was ignited and heard more stories like this by Israelis, by Palestinians, and I was like incited and enthusiastic in kind of relating to that prophetic archetype or a micro-messianic archetype in which there's a yearning, a wish, a human wish for emancipation, for freedom, for liberation, to find cracks in the oppressive system through which the light might come in eventually. And this talk is an academic talk, but it's also a tangent from these stories that I heard, those prophetic revelatory dynamics that I heard from in that context. And this talk is a tangent. It's also a love poem to the human spirit that seeks revolution, seeks liberation, seeks peace. And it's also a wish for peace in the land where I come from, for peace and collective liberation, a better future for my kids and all kids in the land. And this talk is dedicated for a hopeful future. So the main claims in my talk are that revelatory moments are revolutionary. Yeah, there is something in revelations that also activates us, that moves us, that enthusiast subjects spread the substance with fidelity, with loyalty to their revelatory event, that this diffusion of the substance is confined to specific situations. We'll get to all of those soon. That it happens in hyped moment, bursts in history, nonlinear dynamics, in which there are bursts in history, hype moments, in which movements happen and the substance spread widely in those moments, and that this diffusion and revolutionary dynamics end with the process of routinization and exclusivity and a new status quo until new revelatory events would rupture again. I'm influenced by my ayahuasca rituals of Israelis and Palestinians and studying that field, being part of the psychedelic renaissance of being in Imperial College and then in Exeter and the medicalisation movement and just seeing all the dynamics that are happening around me. The historical accounts of Allen Ginsberg for the 60s, Master Ireneo for Santo Daime, Moonhead for the Peyote movement of 150 years ago, Ushahu for the Yawanawa tribe, kind of in a women movement within the Yawanawa tribe, and many, many other historical accounts. These are anthropological, but they're also phenomenological. It's about culture, but it's also about experiences that happen to people. I'm also influenced by theoretical resources that map revolutionary dynamics and revelatory events. And these are my resources. The one that influenced me but the most is Badiou's Being an Event. So I'll use few symbols here. One is substance, yeah. So those substances that we love so much. The other is situation. Situations are different situations we're embedded, and I'll explain each of those. Each situation is built from a structure, yeah, that puzzle pieces that are memes, ideas, languages, practices, technologies that exist in specific situations. And we are subjects within those situations. So a situation can be mid-20th century USA. It can be the colonized Amazon in the, let's say, the rubber boom period in which Santo Daime emerged 100 years ago. It can be psychiatry or neuroscience in the beginning of 21st century with all its structure of technology, theories, fMRIs, FDA regulations, RCTs. This is part of the structure of psychiatry and neuroscience. It can be Silicon Valley, it can be Christianity as a whole, it can be a tribe, it can be a lab, it can be a musical genre with its musical instruments and its musical structures, and it can be simply a group of friends. All of those are certain situations. Then a revelatory moment happens. This can be a revelation, an epiphany, an insight, a eureka moment, an illumination, an aha moment, a breakthrough, the moment of falling in love. A traumatic event as well can be one of those, a revolutionary, spontaneous revolutionary moment. These are all breakthrough moments. There are moments of novelty, of surprise. We can have, for example, the Albert Hofmann event. We're celebrating in 2 days. The Albert Hofmann event, in many ways, we are all ripples of that first revelatory moment in Western psychedelia. And we continue, it energizes those people, right? So there's an element of surprise, of serendipity in the revelatory events, as if it came from nowhere. There's a novelty and surprise that also motivates and energizes. So a revelation happens, and then a ripple of the revelatory event happens. And the main mechanism of action that I argue that through which psychedelics proliferate and spread in space is fidelity. This is the loyalty we develop to these revelatory moments. And we do two things when this happens. The first thing is that we feed other people with a substance. Yeah, we really want to feed other people with a substance. It's a mission we're enthusiastic about, to convince others that this is worthwhile. Yeah? So this is the first process of fidelity. The other and the important one and the interesting one is that we connect the structure of the situation with the substance itself. And we start doing this connection. It's a meaning-making process. It's a practice-making process in which we connect the structure and the substance together. And when we do that, we help the substance proliferate. So one of my master students called, when we heard my talk, he kind of called it mimetic hitchhiking. Right? So for the genes to ride widely, they need to access different memes. So the genes rides with the memes together. Okay, the substance rides on the structure, and we connect the memes and the structure together. So all of us, most of us normal people, we can mostly feed just our friends and the one close to us. But some people have wider transmission skills, right? So we have the artists. The artists have wide transmission skills. They can really do a strong connection between the structure and the substance, between the memes and the ideas and the practices and the music and the substance. And they do great work in wide transmission. And then there's even stronger super spreaders of the substance, which are the prophets. We call them a prophet. We look at the prophet archetype of the moment. And these are people who are good with language. Right? They're really talented with language. They can be poets. Maria Sabina was a poet. They can be writers, authors, academics that are really good in writing. They have the talent of the word. And because they have that talent, they can really connect the substance and the structure together, the memes and the structure together. So we have, for example, we have Huxley, influenced by his perennial philosophy. It's a book he wrote a decade before his first revelatory event. And his revelatory event is then connected to perennial philosophy, to mystical experiences, to universal experiences that belong to all religions, to the doors of perception and Neo-Vedanta. And he connects these together, and by that, managed to proliferate the substance to many, many situations. And in some ways, we're all Huxleyan to some extent. We have Master Ireneo in the rubber boom 100 years ago, who drinks with mestizo people and indigenous people, and then have a revelation that relates to the Queen of the Forest or Virgin Mary, and brings the substance to Christianity, to community in a syncretic way, spiritualism, African spiritualism into this. We have Robin Carhart-Harris in the situation of neuroscience, connecting maybe through his own revelatory event. He'll publish a book in the next year, I think, and he might share that. But through his own revelatory event, being with loyalty and fidelity to his revelatory event, connect different ideas of neuroscience, the default mode network, the ego dissolution, Freudian ideas, entropic brain, Grothian ideas, connects them together and spreads the substance widely within the situation of neuroscience. We have then Michael Pollan picks up on this and medicalisation and managed to spread the substance widely into bourgeois Western culture. We have Terence McKenna that after the come down from the 60s, pick up again in La Chorrera experiment of Dennis and Terence McKenna in the Amazon. They have this very strong psychotomimetic experience. Dennis McKenna goes quite nuts and cuckoo in that for a period, spiritual emergency or psychotic breakdown, but it's a very intense moment for both of them. Based on this, they developed the time wave theory. They develop strong loyalty to the substance and develop a manual of how to grow mushrooms easily. They disseminate the manual together with a strong theory and reignite, revitalize the counterculture through that event. Yeah, and then Terence McKenna goes and raps his prophetic raps to all of the audience and reignites the counterculture. We have Rick Dublin with medicalisation and trauma in inner healer modalities. We have Hushahu from the Yawanawa tribe in her vision. She sees a woman, a female deity that tells her to spread ayahuasca to women and break from the patriarchal structure of the Yawanawa tribe. We have Kwana Parker of the 150 years ago or 120 years ago in moving the peyote from the huichol in Central America and Mexico and start diffusing the substance into North America while bringing Christianity, while bringing also the ritual and the communal ritual and influence from his revelatory events. So we have those prophets. A lot of times these are men, unfortunately. I'm happy to hear explanations for the reason. There are definitely examples of women in that, but I suspect that we're still in patriarchal situation, and a prophet, a lot of times, the status of that person is important for the dissemination of the substance and how people listen to them. And the prophet, a lot of times, are men. And I'm curious if you have different ideas around it or other examples for women. I would love to hear those. So a movement is slowly emerging, and a movement is a collective fidelity. It's the unification of a community with a shared mission to bring something, right? This is a movement. And other fidelities happen. There are practitioners and builders and sorcerers and resourcers and other support that support this collective fidelity of a movement together. And this is where things are exciting. This is kind of a revolutionary spirit of a collective that is ignited. But every good thing must come to an end. Every hype will come down. Every revolutionary moment would come down from the revolutionary moment. And there are few dynamics in which it happens. The first is the fetishization of fidelity. Yeah. In this sense, fetishization of fidelity, this kind of thing that excites us, become the only thing, become too strong. And what we do in this case is that we connect the substance and the structure too strong. It becomes exclusive. The mystical experience is the only experience that psychedelics induce, right? Statements like this should be therapeutic but not recreational. The ravers are kind of laughed at by researchers, right? It becomes an exclusive language. Huxley was exclusive, claiming that the substance should be only taken by the few, the philosopher, the artists. We have the monopolization of psychedelics that is attempts for exclusiveness. We have Master Ireneo that after his revelatory moment developed a doctrine for 40 years, incorporating new songs, creating a new community, but then rigidifying in the end of his life. Conflict rises in these moments. And just before he dies, he says, nobody should change the doctrine after my death, right? So this is like a rigidification. This is a fetishization. The substance and the structure are too tight together. There's a loss of novelty in this case, and revelations become confirmatory, the socialization of hallucinations. The setting influence the psychedelics too much in this case. When that happens, the fidelity is weakened, the charisma is reduced, the conflict emerges because all of those egos who are tied together in a movement are now fighting against each other. There's stagnation in the field, but there's also healthy processes of routinization sometimes, right? So it's not all just like this kind of bummer news. We can think about the Peyote movement of 150 years ago, moving from Central America, moving quickly to North America, eventually stabilizing into the Native American church, right? So this is a routinization process. We have other forces at play. We have orthodoxy checks, right? So these are people that are agents of the situation. Let's say psychiatrists, strong psychiatrists or FDA regulators within the framing of psychiatry. And they really want to break that relationship between the substance and the structure, right? Because they ride together. So mainstream psychiatry is an orthodoxy that prevents ideas like the experience. If the experience is the therapeutic, the mystical experience is therapeutic, or the context, the setting is important, mainstream psychiatry, the orthodoxy of mainstream psychiatry will break that relationship. It can be FDA regulators that kind of maintain the orthodoxy. It can be the war on drugs of Nixon. It can be religious scholars claiming that the mystical experience is just a fake mystical experience when it's induced by substances. It can be anti-cult sentiments in France and in the US. It can be the church itself to the Santo Daime early on and to the Peyote movement early on. And it can also be the legal framework to the Peyote movement 150 years ago, 120 years ago, and maybe for 50 years that had to battle with legal and regulatory aspect until it's found its path in routinizing into the Native American church. So we can say that these are also internal processes that we do with ourselves. Yeah, so we have revelatory events, but we also belong to certain situations and certain structure, and we always kind of in a strong kind of a small battle between our loyalty to these events and our belonging to the structure, and we kind of negotiate, and maybe that negotiation is healthy because not every revelation is truth, right? So it's kind of having some doubt and having some checks with ourselves. The other deconstructing process happens from inside. These that were once in the know-how and now turned against the thing itself, the fidelity itself. In a way, this is a reaction to the fetishization, right? So this is a reaction for those who fetishized. Now there's the ones from inside who try to break down. These were people who might previously been with fidelity, but now they're in anti-fidelity, yeah? And there's a sense of betrayal in the air. But the question is who betrays who? Whether it is them betraying the movement or whether it's the movement that once fetishized itself is betraying its own original values and their reaction to that. These subjects a lot of times are in the edges of the situations. They're liminal to switch situation. Maybe they're once central and they've been marginalized and they start deconstructing. And sometimes it's an important process. It's a process of doubt and negotiation and deconstruction, but also anti-fidelity can be fetishized as well. And in that sense, the deconstructing energy, the deconstructing forces can be fetishized and they can have the same zeal as fidelity as well. Yeah, so they can have the same iconoclastic breaking down zeal as fidelity as well. So these are all in the kind of revolutionary dynamics. There's a fidelity, there's fetishization. Yeah, in fidelity, we connect the substance and the structure. With fetishization, the connection becomes too strong. And in deconstruction, we disconnect them. This happens from orthodoxy checks and from those in anti-fidelity. And all of those happened in one situation. But there's lots of other situations, and we belong to many, 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 many situations. Yeah? So we have here a new situation, the pink situation. In the pink situation, the substance doesn't exist yet. The substance is only in the green situation. But soon we have this liminal prophet that's kind of there on the border. Yeah, you see that kind of person with the eye, the revelatory moment, and they're liminal. They belong to two situations. And they have the skill of moving the substance from one situation to another. This moment of liberation happens in times of high political anxieties. The situations are more fractures, and those liminal prophets are the ones who manage to do a successful transmission to another situation. In this sense, the revelatory event itself, the phenomenology, the experience of the revelatory event, is now suddenly related to the new situation. The content of it is related to the new situation. When Master Ireneo have a vision of Virgin Mary, it relates to the new situation, to the Christianity in which he wants to bring ayahuasca to from indigenous and mestizo people. So there is a novelty again, the charisma arises again, fidelity is back, excitement again is happening, hype is happening again. Yeah? So we have few examples, and maybe even all of the prophets that I mentioned before are all in some way liminal prophets, moving it from one situation to another. We have Allen Ginsberg that liberates the substance from the exclusiveness of Aldous Huxley, and through his revelatory moments ignites a lot of the energy of the 60s. We have Ken Kesey that does the same in the West Coast. He's participating in psychotomimetic studies in Stanford, and he liberates the LSD from the lab and spreads it with his merry pranksters, and will start to develop West Coast psychedelia. We have Master Ireneo, as I said, moved it from indigenous and mestizo to Christianity, but after that rigidifies and becomes exclusive. We have Padrino Sebastião that was apprenticing with Master Ireneo, that has a schism and breaks that and universalizes Santo Daime again. We have Moonhead that picks up from the Peyote movement, picks up the Comanche ritual of the half-moon ritual of Quanah Parker, and in his micro-messianic zeal and excitement, spreads Peyote now in more of North America with his mission to spread Peyote. We have Ruqayya, the Palestinian woman that I mentioned in the beginning, that in her energy now spreads ayahuasca to Palestinian women with the wish to liberate their voice, and seeing how liberating their voice has a political value. In the same way, we have Hushahu from the Yawanawa tribe that already mentioned, that also has a vision of a female deity, asking her to liberate ayahuasca from the patriarchy of the Yawanawa tribe and start allowing women to serve ayahuasca as well in the tribe. And with that mission, she creates kind of the sisterhood across different tribes in the Amazon. So there's endless schisms all the time. All the time the substance moves from one situation to another, and there are endless schisms all the time. And these are revolutionary moments, and a revolution is syncretic. It's syncretic because it moves the structure, the memes, the ideas, the practices of one situation, it moves it to another situation, right? It doesn't necessarily disseminate the past, it moves it to another situation, and it energizes transmission again. This moment energizes, again, transmission. But we have also nostalgia, the good old days of these old timers that are still doing their old thing. Santo Daime of Master Ireneo, there's still a small community in the Amazon that still practice the orthodoxy as Master Ireneo said. They're a small community, quite tight-knit, and while Santo Daime then moved and universalized itself. So we have also this kind of stable strongholds, more orthodox ways of doing it, in which setting is much more structured and stronger in those cases. And there's an old-time kind of nostalgia that might be a location in which a revelatory event will happen again. And these things now, they kind of move from small to big, but it can also move from big to small, and lots of bubble. There's lots of conflict in the space, and conflict is a great feature because it allows us to challenge ourselves and not to become an orthodoxy and not to become unified. So we have a lot of times breaks from, let's say, a shaman that had one of their apprentice breaks to do their own practice. And a lot of times it's with conflict and egos associated with it. But for the substance point of view, this is a way to reach other situations. Yeah. So there's constantly breaks and schisms all the time. This happens to infinity. There's a revelatory event, fidelity, energy of movement, revolutionary energy, then fetishization, stagnation, routinization that happen together with deconstruction until a new moment happens, a liberatory happens again, there's a revolution and there's a nostalgia. And the revolution will be revolutionized all the time, yeah? So we come to conclusion now, and you say, so what? Any substance, any practice, any religious idea, any technology diffuses in such way, yeah? Did you ask yourself that, so what? Was there any people who asked themselves that, so what? Anything moves like this, yeah? And I say, exactly, everything moves like this, yeah? This is how things spread with human. We are revolutionary animals. We have that energy in us, liberatory, emancipatory energy that wants to seek novelty all the time and create new things, yeah? But psychedelics repeatedly do so. It's not that it just happens once and then it moves. They repeatedly do so because fidelity, as I said, that energy is exactly from their point of view what they tap into us in order for them to spread. So they repeatedly ignite those dynamics, yeah? And those dynamics, we can see them in lots of places of revolutionary moment that institutionalize. We fall in love and we get married, yeah? We have a political revolution spontaneous in the street, and then we create a slow trajectory of political power, and in some ways we're all ripples of the French Revolution that institutionalized itself and reappears in many ways in our societies. We have eureka moments in science that then institutionalize itself into theories and try to modify theories in science. We have an illumination moment in art that then becomes a new genre, and that genre might be boring after a while and cliche, and you know, these are the dynamics of our human life. And psychedelics repeatedly do so, and I argue that this is part of their mechanism of action. From their perspective, it's our mechanism of action, yeah? When they think about how to spread into space, they ignite these energies in us. So these are references. Badiou is very much influenced by Badiou, but there are lots of great references. You can take a photo if you want. You can send me feedback. This talk is still in the making. A lot of great conversation with Nicholas Langitz, with Ido Hartogson that gave me great feedback, Mark Schoenman from here, and Christine Hauskeller, my own experiences, and maybe that paper on revelations and revolutions is where I started looking in those dynamics. Then micro-messianics histories. So you can read in the book for Baking Convention from this year, you can read the story of Ruqayya together, weaved together with Allen Ginsberg. And this is where it starts for me, and this is kind of a continuation, a tangent of my piecework. Thank you.